God, there's actually so many cards. I'm trying to like chop this all up so we can format it. I almost needed to like give myself 15 more minutes or something just to go through this. I don't know if there's like an easy way. Ah, it's fine. It's gotta hit that muscle memory stride real quick. Whatever, I might as well just, we're here. Just wing it. It's basically what I'm doing. I just got home 10 minutes ago, and I'm quickly realizing the body of work I've signed up for. So much. It doesn't look like I'm doing anything right now. We have a great many layers that I'm chopping up into individuals so that we can rate them individually. Because I feel like, you know, they're kind of boxed into categories, right? But I think for the most part, each one will have specific synergies for specific characters. So I think it's a better shot at going on its own. But also, there might just be so many that I don't even know if we can get through them all in one stream. There's like, there's just a lot. I'm going through this now. I've trimmed 18. This is cool though. I am happy. I was curious. A, I was hoping if we were gonna get cool modifiers like these. We did. B, question was, are they going to be passive? Or will they be like play around, build around? Like, do they give you something interesting to think about which character you're gonna give them to? And for the most part, it looks like they do, which makes me pretty happy because assuming that we get a good challenge out of this. This is actually very similar to a new mode in another game I was playing, Legends of Runeterra. Yeah, it's really fun. And then, like, you know, when you get a sick card with some sick synergies, and I guess in this case, we should just get to apply it to whoever. Then it's not even going to be like you get a lucky run. It's just like we're happy to see that card, and the question just becomes who do you give it to? Which I think is actually I think I kind of like that choice. In the Runeterra version, you just kind of did runs, and it was just like, well, this run was kind of whatever. You do another run. Oh, okay, we're cruising. But like this time around, it's like, and especially since we're on a stamina system as well. Oh boy. Okay. I think we're close. Can't really see what I'm doing. It looks like I'm just sitting here doing nothing and looking around. Don't you worry. All will be revealed. Okay, one more. God, I really hope that this method works. Not too many issues. Chopping up beats. Alright. Are we good? We're good. There's also the part where I have to like... No, we can do this in chunks of 3, actually. This is actually going to be like the easiest part, I think. Okay. Why? Okay, I see what's happening. No, I had the right idea. The wrong selection. Alright. Keep about even spacing, and then we gotta give our room. There's so many. My god, there are so many layers. Nope, that's the wrong one. It really doesn't help that we're working from the bottom up. Huh? Why are we moving? I'm a bit confused, unless I just have the brackets memorized wrong. I thought it was all blue. Yeah, we should be... Oh, we're starting from the bottom. Oh god, this is all just completely flips. Okay. The cost of commissions. Okay, no, this is happening correctly. Just had the wrong read. Action recovery, and then we drop heal over time, and then we get ruthless debilitation, drop. Deployable cooling system, drop. K turn meter. This is so scuffed. Nope, it just unselected everything. Picked up one extra. What the hell is even happening? Oh, there's so many. Which is good. I kind of like this. This is a little bit daunting, to be honest. It's so laggy. Some of these I will say are a little bit vanilla. This is not okay. Even this. I even mentioned the fact that I don't even know if we have enough space in between them. What's the actual count on this? This has to be almost 30. 5, 10, 15, 20... plus. Yeah, there's almost 30. Damn. This is a lot to bite off at once. Just a casual 15,000 pixel document, you know, standard resolution. It's industry standard here. Wait. Oh, okay. Let's go. Even 15 minutes would have been cutting it close. Why did CG have to give us so much? Okay. Oh, this isn't setting the stage. I don't know what is. There's a lot to play with. Okay. Yeah, hi. What's up? I don't know. Okay. How's everyone doing? Yeah, so much content. I mean, hey. This does mean, though, that as we're playing Conquest, there are going to be a lot of choices that we have to make, right? Which is kind of exciting, right? Oh, did they announce that we're going back to 3v3? I kind of just started to assume that it's going to just be every other month, and that's just the life we're living now. I've reached a kind of zen point for myself where it's... Whether I like 3v3 or not, it's going to be there, so I might as well treat it as valid. Is just kind of where things are at, the way I see it. Alright. So this, I mean, some of these are going to have a lot to think about, and some of these are going to be fairly straightforward. I think we might end up starting with some vanilla stuff since we're kind of just in reverse order. So I don't know. These images that CG provided are kind of low resolution, so hopefully this reads fairly well for the stream. Looks okay. So yeah, I mean, here we just kind of start off with an initial buff package. I don't know if there's a whole lot to say here. In terms of Conquest, the things that we're still in the dark on a bit are, if we compare Galactic Conquest to the existing precedent that we have with War, then it becomes a little bit of a question of, does our turn meter go in between battles for those characters? Do our cooldowns, health, and protection go in between battles for those characters? Because that's how War behaves. Like, everything matters. So we have an Alpha Strike option, which I think this is already obvious. Like, it's gonna be difficult to be too mad at getting this one ever, right? This is just gonna help you do what's called Alpha Striking in other games, which is just you close out the battle immediately. It's obviously bad for a character like Vader. This isn't really meant for windup, but like if you're running like CLS, everyone on your team has offense, crit damage, crit chance at the start of battle, and it's also worth noting that this isn't consumed on first hit. Like some things that we'll see later on are. So this is just like you go JKR, you go CLS. I mean, I don't think there's any crazy analysis to do here, right? Just made another one. Wait a minute. Yeah, I don't think we even need to, like, right? Any damaging characters are going to be pretty happy to see this part. I don't want to spend too much time on the simple here. It's a good package. It's not bad. You know, it kind of depends on, you know, depending on how crazy some of the later effects get. Maybe this one, since it's, you know, one turn at the start of battle isn't that long, right? Like, think about, like, you know, JK lead with an opening tenacity. You lose that real quick. So this could be just something that's nice to pick up early on, but you end up replacing it. I think I read that you can remove it, so you could just trade this down to a B or C team. Still be pretty happy to see that. Imp Trooper is actually kind of bad for this buff, if you think about it. Well, right, because, like, you got Piet, who isn't doing damage on his first turn. Stark isn't doing damage on his first turn. Range does okay damage on his first turn. Like, you would almost want to have, like, Imp Troopers clocked for Veer's fastest in a funny way to make the most use of that. I don't know that that's necessarily worth a build around either. I wouldn't really read too much into that. It's fine, right? Yeah. Simple concept. Just some nice free stats. Why the heck not? Defensive buffs. Very much just the opposite of everything we just looked at. This... So the issue with this is, for the most part, we're looking for longevity in our teams, which means, at least to me, when I'm going to be playing Conquest, I am trying to look for the cleanest counters possible in terms of who is going to offer me the cleanest wins. Just like you would do in Grand Arena, right? You're looking for the cleanest, like the best possible mechanical counters. So this could maybe open up solo opportunities for some characters. Like, I don't know. The one turn starting factor means that, like, maybe a slow nest could be happy to see this sometimes. But it's hard to imagine for the most part, aside from, like, maybe, I don't know, if you know that your DR is, like, slow tanky or something. Obviously critical hit immunity on Malik kind of makes him dead weight there until you apply your own fear or shock. Hard to be too excited about this one. Like, it's not a bad thing, but especially because we don't know. So the value of this, I think, is largely going to be based on the difficulty tuning, and we don't know that yet. So I want to frame this in terms of, think about light side territory battles versus tier 3 assault battles. In light side territory battles, you're very, very happy to see this first one, right? In assault battles, this has so much more value because their speed is higher than 900. It's 1500 almost. I would say ballpark 1300. So you're just gonna sit there taking a beating for a minute. That'll be fine with the Malik. I mean, the big question is, like, this is only good if you know that you're going after them. And most of the time, unless you're choosing like a Padme versus DR matchup, there aren't many counters I can think of. I guess like Thrawn Vader versus DR, kind of. Most counters that you're choosing aren't necessarily like, yeah, we're going second, you're just going to beat up on us for it, it's going to be fantastic. So, yeah, it really just depends, I think, on the difficulty tuning. The value of this, like, if you could have this going to tier 3 assault battles, it would be god tier. It would be so easy to get a consistent run. Imp Troopers against Rebels, if your Imp Troopers are budget, this would just be auto win. So, hard to rate this one. We'll just... Also, the other unfortunate thing about this one is because we're doing easy mode in week 1, or first 2 weeks, I guess, technically, we really aren't even going to know what the actual difficulty of this is going to be until the second exhibition. Yeah. I mean, so far, I think for buffs as generic as these two, I don't think we really need to necessarily look at character synergies. I guess for offensive buffs or defensive buffs, either case, we could point out that, like, this would give you a synergy. Like, Grandmaster Yoda could take these buffs and turn them into an extra 3 turns. That's not nothing. Like, we could just say general Grandmaster Yoda synergy. I don't know if that's really necessarily worth its own note. I feel like we all kind of have that association down by now, but I guess, you know what? Sure. So this gives you kind of a value engine. Health regen isn't necessarily, or isn't usually as powerful as protection regen in this game, I feel like. I think that I kind of agree with this being a white buff. Some really fun small stuff you could do with this right off the bat immediately. Crew kind of just goes insane here. I think that there is a protection version of this component later on that you could just chuck in KRU Watt, and dude would just constantly regenerate his own protection. On top of, he already kind of does with the crew lead. So, you know, we're just looking for buff repeatability. Like, anything that's just going to, you know, I guess Grandmaster Yoda again. Anytime buffs. I would be shocked if this matters, but I would be really curious to know if there's like a spaghetti code argument where, so let's say Grandmaster Yoda makes like, what's gonna be the standard? Let's say he makes like 7 buffs, so that's like 50% health roughly. If you're running GK lead or something like that, I wonder if that counts for a mass assist purpose. I would assume not, because I think that mass assist checks what type of ability it is, so I would assume no. That would be a funny soft interaction. Yeah. So basically, I'm trying to treat Conquest as, like, I'm planning to just field as many standard PvP counters as possible. I'm trying to think of if there's a situation where this buff can necessarily matter. Because, like, the crew interaction is funny. It's gonna regenerate 15% health on impacts, regardless of anything else. But I don't know that that necessarily wins you battles. It would be, like, funny for defense. If you could post KRU on defense and your opponent was just timing out, it would be fantastic. But this is a PvE mode where we need to win. And I don't necessarily see this helping us close, right? If this was, like, if you wanted to do Padme versus DR, the version of this that gives you protection back would be key. It would be sick. But Malik, you know, unless you're doing Padme Shak Ti, which is why Shak Ti was there, right? Was because of the protection regeneration, which Padme really doesn't have access to otherwise. Malik is just going to drain you from 100% on this either way. Other matchups, I don't know. This buff is just kind of meh. And if they're gonna call this a common or white buff, then I say, let's agree with CG a little bit. I think we could just move. GKs for looking for healing actions, yeah. Because there are certain Jedi moves, I think it was like Hermit Yoda basic or something. There were a few moves, or like Barris basic, where it didn't specifically proc, even though it met the conditions, because CG was just like picky about whose abilities could qualify. Enemies gain 2 damage over time effects and burning for 2 turns at the start of their turn, which can't be resisted. Palpatine loves this. Vader is happy with this. This is actually kind of funny with Django. Wheel soft synergy. Wait, what even was Quail's burn synergy? I don't even remember. It was so insignificant that I like didn't even internalize it. The target already had burning inflict exposed for 2 turns. Yeah, that's a real sick. That's a real sick get right there. A massive build around. Yeah. Yeah, this could be really funny for bounty hunters. I think it's basically just saying that the enemy team will also just automatically daze themselves. It's not bad. R2's kind of happy to see burning, but that's just like doubling his basic damage, which was already pretty much nothing, so... Yeah, I mean, Palp Vader Marauder gets some benefit out of the extra debuffs. It's just like a nice debuff extra package. I don't know if there's too much extra synergies to really note here. I'm trying to think. If bounty hunters are happy for the extra debuffs for Boba. Night Sisters are actually really bad at handling effects like this, by the way. At least from what we've seen so far, this would feel like a waste to use against Night Sisters. But easy mechanical example is, normally, you kill a sister, Zombie brings them back to life, and then comes back herself. Zombie cannot revive a Night Sister that dies due to passive effects. So, let's say you're fighting Night Sisters, there's a Doc on the enemy team. She's gonna get 4 damage over times, pretty much rolling consistently past second turn. She's gonna be taking just constant health attacks. And if she dies to that, you have to specifically avoid killing her herself. You have to just let it. She needs to start a turn, and then the health damage is going to kick in, and she's going to be gone. And then you just completely defuse the whole zombie trap. So kind of a nice effect. It's a very niche use still. Yeah, it's just... Some of the stuff we said was kind of obvious, but I don't know if there's any clear... Django lead. Daze automatically, or enemies automatically daze themselves. I don't know if there's anything else to really read off of this one for the most part. I guess like Marauder. Eek. So that'd be the best with bounty hunters, but overall, yeah, bounty hunters, Sith, EP lead, Vader specifically, and bounty hunters get the double dip, right? You get Boba, who loves people debuffing themselves for free. You've got Django, who loves people burning themselves for free. That just seems like a happy time all around. Yeah, pretty simple. Yeah, so here we go. Here is the flip side of that coin. 3% protection versus 7% health. Obviously, it's a lower conversion rate, but I would still actually rate this as being better than the health one. Obviously, you know, protection regeneration, we've come to associate it as being good, especially because of Grand Arena, and we're not necessarily contesting for banners here. If we are in a situation where health and protection do go in between waves, then there also is the consideration that protection is what's going to get taxed the most. So unless you're, not every team has a good protection regeneration mechanic. So unless you have something like this, then it's possible that you get into sector 2, 3, 4. Suddenly your teams are all just all health, no protection. This just adds a little bit of extra nice sustain. So it would work for boss lead as well. I mean, yeah, you basically have the choice either between sustain or Django. Like the Django burn blocking turn meter isn't necessarily going to matter for every matchup. That's true. And yeah, we think of the burn and the damage over time as the same as like boss lead against Darth Revan with ferocity, right? We already know that it's going to benefit boss lead. And actually, there actually is a good argument that boss lead would be better for Conquest, just better sustain. Certainly possible. I would say matchup dependent, which is kind of the strength of bounty hunters, right? Is you pick the tools for the job. Let's see. Yeah, this is like, this would make KRU Watt just a ridiculously durable solution. 3% protection per isn't necessarily the most insane, but you are getting 3% protection back. I guess technically probably 8% protection back with the ARU lead. It's just a really nice synergy package. It kind of takes the things that you enjoy and make it better. Padme, any team that really doesn't have a way to get their protection back otherwise, Padme especially, this is huge for, because that team just lacks a stand, right? We know this by now. Like Grand Arena, that team is 55 machine. They would never dream of having a tool like this normally. So yeah. Yeah, it would feel fantastic there. Grandmaster Yoda as well could just become like a protection healer, which is a really rare tool, but Jedi have a lot more access to protection regen. JKL lead, JKR lead with assists. JML lead barely. I guess this kind of makes JML leads lessons heal you a little bit more. It's still not going to feel that great, right? Like Revan lead and Luke lead, Knight Luke lead are swinging in terms of 20% protection values. And Jedi Lessons from Master Luke lead is giving one person like 5 to 8%-ish most of the time. It's really not a whole lot. So this is, for Jedi Master Luke, this is kind of just sprinkling on a little bit extra here and there. I don't see a whole lot of stuff to be happy about there. Let's see. What other debuff mills do we have? I haven't looked at the game yet. Probably be good to have a visual aid. Rey doesn't really have a whole lot to synergize with there. Doesn't really seem a whole lot to synergize with at all so far. I mean, Gas doesn't really have protection regen, but they also don't really generate enough buffs to be able to use this. 5Z would actually be a little bit funny. 5Z... protection over time would give you 3% extra protection. I would be shocked if that actually has application, but it kind of works. It could be there. GMI could become more useful on that Padme team. At that point, I don't even feel like GMI would be needed, right? Because Padme makes so many instances of protection up that she already is kind of just dropping heal or protection bombs on your team again. Like, you would probably only get about 20% protection per max. Depending on how many times your team got debuffed is pretty much what it's going to scale off of past the base GR ally scaling. But even if you're fighting, like, if we're using Padme versus DRs, like, the big, like, this would just completely shift that matchup. You're getting a lot of debuffs to generate extra protection off that. I don't know if it's just a 10% bigger shield or if it's another instance of protection. I want to say it's another instance, but it's better. I mean, you could also soft read this as like GK or even GK Xeris. Like if you get crit with GK, then you'll essentially get a little bit of protection back. This is a small thing, nice thing. I think. I mean, Mon Mothma Rebels do actually kind of just get a lot of buffs on themselves over time. Maybe not even necessarily in a single action, but just by virtue of TM Train. But they already do kind of have nice sustain, so I'm not sure I really consider it to be worth acknowledging, right? Like, I wouldn't really think Mon Mothma would be the team that you want to give it to. JTR, BB-8, has some soft synergy. And the team actually can lack a little bit of protection sustain. But, like, the thing is, JTR does... So JTR is usually in control enough that you don't really need it. Like, you know, maybe you're doing JTR versus Bounty Hunters, you eat a little bit of chip, you go down to, like, a 55, 56, 57 in Grand Arena, but, like... Yeah... I mean, BB-8 still, though, right? The whole idea being that the constant secret intel does give you some extra value over time. And I guess C-3PO as well. Translation, secret intel. Either or. Wouldn't be bad. I mean, any special that you do would be 6% protection. Not a bad effect, especially since JTR League gets to cycle their specials all the time. It's workable. I mean, so, like... God, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to bring up Chirrut. Because I don't think... I'm certainly not out here, and I don't know that anyone's really going to be out here like, oh man, you got to get that Chirrut up and rolling, baby. But Chirrut actually does create a lot of team buffs. I can't even find Chirrut in my roster right now. I'm pretty sure the conditional is just like anytime you get crit. Yeah, whenever you are critically hit, or in the case of his basic as well, you get heal over time. So, you know, anytime we've done, like, Nest solos against Mon Mothma, obviously Mon Mothma's the niche scenario because Chirrut's basicing a lot more than usual. But the buff count on your teams can get ridiculously high there. So, there's no point in even adding this, but, we'll take that for what it is. I guess actually Watt technically could if you wanted to. It actually, I'm gonna put that above Chirrut, even though Watt makes less buffs than Chirrut. I think that's actually worth noting. And Watt will be around plenty. So, you know, it's not bad. Moving right along, 2 over kill times for effect at the start of their turn, so not a start of battle effect. This will just keep rolling throughout the battle. This doesn't feel as good as some of the other effects. I could see this being a good tool for solo artists. Like, you can just, I mean, Nest most of the time won't necessarily want to see it, but if you're trying to do like a Malik solo, there are some times where just Malik isn't quite getting the regen he needs sometimes. But like for most factions, yeah, this feels a little bit weak. Like, this feels like a pretty big downgrade over this. I guess they could just soft synergize. That'd be what, 14 health plus 10% per turn, I believe. I think heal over time is 5% per. I would have to double check on that. Yeah. I'm not too blown away here. You don't think they're going for a Malik and solo level of difficulty? That's at a really, really favorable matchup against this Galactic Challenge. Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what we're working with, but like this is what I would think of so far. Is it would give like a Sith Eternal Emperor, right? The dude has a massive protection pool, especially. This just gives them a little bit of push over the top, especially because like this is less conditional. You can think of this as this is a less powerful effect than health recovery, but at the same time, it doesn't rely on the character or the team to be able to produce anything themselves. So this is a weaker effect, but it is also just kind of self-dependent or independent. So I think that's for what it is. I don't think there's too much else to say about it that for the most part. Can't really think of any heal over time synergies, and this just gives you them. It's not an effect to work around either, so yeah, I don't think it's too much to read into there. Enemy falls below 100% health. They are inflicted with healing immunity and 2 stacks of armor shred. They can't be dispelled or resisted. So CG, okay, this is just like a Dooku lead Mother Talzin build around. Yeah, I mean, there's the classic examples, right? We have Sith Trooper, we have Mother Talzin, we have a Dooku lead that you could try to combo off of. A little bit curious that we don't see a turn duration here. Actually makes me really curious. Because that was like one of the big things about Mother Talzin plus Dooku lead, right? Is even though it is a compelling trap, the Plague plus healing immunity, you can just outlast it. If that's permanent, it's actually kind of sick. And there's other smaller ways to go under protection. Sith Assassin. I'm trying to think, what are the protection bypass that we have? It doesn't even necessarily have to be protection bypass, right? But to me, I think, unless we're just fighting a character with not much protection and like a heavier health base, the armor shred's hitting late unless you're specifically targeting an ability that just hits it early, right? Like, you're not gonna like pick CLS or JKR and do your opening burst on someone and then they get armor shred and you're like, oh, thank God you're here. Dooku counters on a Makash. That's a good point. Actually, do I have chat in here? I kind of want to make sure chat's in here if we can get it. Very collaborative. Oh, God. Interesting. Yeah, we still don't really have that many protection ignore tools, though, right? I'm trying to think. It's extortion, but extortion just does percent health damage. It doesn't ignore protection. I was gonna say Nihilist, but that's just the raid version of him, unfortunately. Yeah, the biggest question to me right now is this mode going to cross over our cooldowns and our health and protection in between battles? Like, imagine taking your normal Galactic Legends counter, but then you're starting with less stats and maybe some abilities missing. It is a little bit stressful. Honestly, I'm actually kind of grateful that, well, I was gonna say I'm grateful that we're doing the easy mode early, but that's probably not the case, because I don't think hard mode would be like immediately terrible. Maybe like day 1 easy mode, and then we go hard. I guess we're just 2 weeks of easy. Yeah, I mean, the heal immunity is nice. I guess at the very least, it just helps add a death sentence for like the character you're targeting will have a difficult time, or at least will need some dispel support. Other than the traditional build arounds, I don't see a whole lot else to really worry about here. I guess like it's worth noting that I think Mother Talzin lead, when you apply the plague, also would proc this. Like, obviously the Mother Talzin AoE, but I'm pretty sure that the plague application itself does like a small chip of percent health damage, so you would get immediate benefit there as well. So like pretty much every Night Sister could benefit from it. You would guess it will carry cooldowns? Yeah. Man, if we want to talk about like what's gonna make Conquest difficult, I made that video about PvE fundamentals, and God, this is maybe going to be the most punishing mode for those habits that I've ever seen. On the flip side, if you're good at like ending with high turn meter preload, then it might just end up making Conquest too easy, which I'm also a little bit worried about. Bonus with a dot bonus could prevent Plague from any cleanses. The only bummer is that so Plague stops them from being dispelled, but it doesn't stop them from expiring naturally, so it does put them on a little bit of an extra timer, but yeah, some like a very narrow synergy, and there are some characters that are pretty happy to see this, and there are some who are a little bit more indifferent. Actually, probably the biggest one, actually I'm gonna put this at the top. There's actually a pretty sick anti-JKR, or anti-savior in general. I don't know how flexible we're going to be able to be here with this. Actually, that's not even true, because Savior does the self-cleanse. It'd be kind of actually not bad for Ray lead. At least in the situation where like Ray would go to 50%. Assuming she doesn't basic first, then you might be able to be in a situation where she takes her next turn and doesn't get healed back to 100%. But Savior auto self-cleanses, so unless you had Plague on them and you were trying to do like Nicer versus JKR, which actually was a thing and could be a thing, but it's the issue with that is that we have to clock Asajj to rip off the Tenacity and the Foresight and all that good stuff, because otherwise you're not really getting value out of this. If you do, then maybe, but it's not as... I'll put it under Mother Talisman. Actually, I don't even know the... Okay, we actually need to pull up the kit. So the question is, does the heal happen for the cleanse? Actually, no. Plague plus healing immunity should lock Savior, period. Because if the cleanse happens first, it can't be cleansed, and if the heal happens first, they can't be healed off. Unless the game just happens to like do both at once and satisfy both conditions at once. They recover 100% of their max health. Take a bonus turn. As well, debuffs on themselves. Yeah, I think those should work. This is nuts. So, what are the odds that you could just GMI loop forever? I mean, no, it would be too difficult. If you had 10 buffs, you're looking at 2, maybe 3 cooldown reduction on average. I actually really like this though, especially if we're assuming that Conquest requires you to do your own cooldown management. I don't actually like this for JTR because most of the time JTR doesn't care about this because they already self-provide cooldowns. The question is, so like for Padme, you could pretty much just get to a point where you are looping Padme heals constantly, which is absurd. And especially because Padme was always that team, especially like think about Ahsoka, right? Ahsoka's special is a solid button. But like in Padme 3PO, because Ahsoka only has one special button on a 3-turn cooldown, she had a really tough time getting to triple translate. This just fixes that. Mothma's buttons, I don't really tend to feel that strongly about Mothma's specials. I guess it would help Mothma ramp. This is actually pretty true. Like it would help her soldier get promoted is worthwhile. Not clones, Rex will go nuts. Oh god, Rex cycle actually. The buff generation isn't really that high there, though, especially if we're talking about buff targeting on Rex. We have Rex making Tenacity. We have Shakti can give him 2. Arc giving turret shouldn't count as a buff. Blue buff. Like, what other options do you really have? I'm gonna say Padme is even higher value. Like Padme's heal is so good, and her kick is solid, and her basic is just so meh compared to her heal that just it's nuts. It's ridiculous, and that team can just cycle it nonstop. For C3PO, it's a mildly nice bonus. Need 7 buffs to expect 1 reduction. Yeah. I guess if we're just taking a direct conversion of expected, like 15% to 1. Like sometimes it'll high roll, sometimes it'll low roll. I'm trying to stick this in teams that wouldn't necessarily be dependent on it to work. Yeah, Mon Mothma. I don't remember what the summon's called. Whatever. Give you the rank of summon. Yeah, I feel really good about this. I mean, I'm trying to think. Jedi Master Luke can kind of proc it often. Shakti actually is kind of happy to see a JML, like a chance to cycle her heal cooldown in that context. JKR, if you hit a cooldown reduction on him as well, would be really happy to see this. Let's say JKR. I like JKR in here. Even JKR possibly without Grandmaster Yoda. There's enough other ways to generate buffs. Like, if you hit Mark, swap, Mark, that's such a... that's the exact same value as being able to do Mind Trick, assist called Mind Trick with JTR. It's really good. But, like, actually, you know what? I've only been thinking of JTR in the context of having C3PO, and I think I'm reverting that because we don't necessarily get to guarantee that we always have that. So... yeah. This would work well with JML and Trash Jedi like Plo, etc. Kind of depends. Like at JML, if you're just there to cycle Jedi lessons, then it really isn't doing a whole lot for you. Right? It also depends on what your definition of Trash Jedi is. Could be GR, it could just be like Old Republic leftovers. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this read. This seems like a fairly fun build around. What do we have here? Multi-hit rewarded. We're looking for effects or abilities that can multi-hit. So like right off the bat, we have the classical favorites of... You could look at this as like a Chupio AoE whistling birds. Like you could kind of look at this in the same frame as like Poe Unique for the most part, right? Of just like anything that was already doing AoE multi-hit effect. Pretty happy with this. Geos. Yeah, Geos is a good example. Like Geos already had this at 1%. This just makes them insane. Mon Mothma as well. Yeah, this is really strong. This is excellent. Let's rate this solid. Rewards mass assists. Rewards multi-hit abilities. If we see like a Sabine rework, not exactly the best example, but it does have a 4-hit basic. You could get something out of that, you know. By new cycle. problem is, so Chubio AoE is actually going to run into the exact same issue with trying to get value out of this that I think it ran into when I was trying to make it work with Resistance 0 Poe unique outside of LSTB, because LSTB solves that issue. In PvP, which you can basically just think of this as bot PvP, you really don't. You operate on this curve where like 3 people is the sweet spot, and then when you get to 4 dead, it actually gets less impactful. In this case, it isn't as true, but it kind of is the same effect of like by that point in the battle, you already kind of won. Palpatine was shock somewhat, but that requires them to take a turn, so it's kind of self-defeating in the process. Geos to me would be the king of this. Mon Mothma as well, if you've got like the Terminator Mon Mothma team. Like Pow, Hot Thermal Scouts, Kara preferably. I mean, Kara is almost redundant with this. Kara is almost extremely not needed here, right? Because your Terminator control would already be so sick. But that's at least the team that I'm running. That's the team that I have. Any AoE splash it just gives extra value to, which is certainly nice. Like F-Flix gets a little bit of extra value here. JKR swap because of Terminator removal. Like, this is just a really friendly. You can kind of just plug this into most teams, I think, and it's gonna feel worthwhile. Like, this is the most flexible thing that we've seen so far. Like, yeah, I think if we're just going for like a clean sweep team, I think CLS will actually feel really nice with. Even though, like, obviously you could look at this and be like, why would you never use this with Geos or Mon Mothma? But this, like, CLS is already kind of a control team, right? You're aiming your Terminator reductions, you're aiming your stuns, you're trying to line everything up, and this just kind of smooths out this process incredibly, to the point that it even might open some new matchups that CLS could win before, but wasn't always. I feel good about this. I feel pretty good about this. This is just nuts. This is, I think, the strongest we've seen. It's sick. Geos will be ridiculous. So Geos, if you go like a fast Geo soldier, you could probably just Terminator juggle them into oblivion. Not 100%, but it's close. Like, it's not a complete loop, but it's very close. Troopers would be good. Also true. But depending, like, Troopers, I feel like you're already bringing them into a matchup where most of the time, this almost doesn't really matter, right? Maybe the same thing as CLS. Maybe it opens up some matchups for them that they wouldn't normally take. So, I'm not going to write that off either, but yeah. That's my general read. Potency calibration. I felt this one earlier and felt extremely about it. I guess you could say it's like funny for Darth Sidious. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a mega version of GG's lead passive, right? I don't think if there's any real exception I'm not thinking of here. Like, excess potency in this game just doesn't really do anything for you, right? So the only thing this would really do for you is maybe open up a team that would normally build around potency to just greed on other stats, and then you just get the potency eventually. There's an argument for that. About Tarkin, though. It's true. Alright. You would. We do have relic Tarkins now. God damn it. You know what? We'll give him the overwhelming text for the overwhelming firepower. Nihilistly, The worst part